Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we have to just cull through some useless conversations that are happening, that are in the cacophony of them just now missing the point completely. We have to come back and distill it. As we stand in the middle of an election in the United States of America, north of that country, things are getting out of hand. Have a look at what you're seeing on your screens. Just observe them carefully. People are being identified. It's broad daylight. What are they doing? Look at what's taking place. Now, I'd like to point this out, that this is not happening on the streets of Punjab, it's not happening on the streets of Delhi, it's not happening on the streets of Jalandhar or Ludhiana or Chandigarh. These are happening on the streets of Toronto, in Brampton, in Surrey. All right? It's not the purpose or the job of the Indian police or the Indian diplomatic services to fix this. This is the purpose and job of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, of the Trudeau administration, of the local administration, to do something about this. Now, Hillary Clinton, when she was former US Secretary of State, made a comment standing in Pakistan. And the comment was that if you keep snakes in your backyard, don't be surprised when you get bitten. Now, the person on your screen here, wearing the uniform of a sergeant in the RCMP, the sashes of the sergeant, was part of this mob assaulting others, people of Indian descent, Hindus. He's now been suspended after he was caught on camera. So, on his day off, the man who's working in the police is working and protesting with whom? Do those protests look familiar? Do the flags look familiar? Now, let us not besmirch the image of Punjabis. I am a Punjabi, okay? And like any good Punjabi, I have family in US, New York, San Francisco, Toronto, Canada, you name it, okay? These are not Punjabis, okay? That man and these actions are not being done by my community. These issues are not taking place on the streets in India. These are happening in the full public view of the Canadian police. Now you know they are happening with Canadian police involvement. Coincidental, I don't know. Those guys are part of what is taking place, being caught on camera. And this is not chaos on the streets of India. This is chaos on the streets of Canada. As you know, in Brampton, a Hindu temple has been attacked. You know that Indian consulates have been attacked. It's happened in London. You know that they have put out floats celebrating the assassinations of India's prime ministers. They have put out hoardings demanding violence and murder of India's diplomats. They have been fed it to by the Canadian establishment. Justin Trudeau is spending more time trying to convince the world that India is a criminal entity. It's a criminal state. It's Wild West. But what is happening in his country is nothing. Nothing happened. The reason this is deadly serious is because almost exactly 40 years ago, we told you so. We told you, the Canadians, that there are extremist organizations operating on your soil. We told you, the Canadians, specifically, that they are going to turn into a serious terror threat. We told you, the Canadians, seriously, that within the coming few weeks, specifically, flights of Air India traveling in and out of Canada will be targeted. We told you, the Canadians, repeatedly that this is deadly serious, and you ignored us. You kept ignoring us. You kept ignoring us until the worst terror attack in the history of the world, until 9/11 took place. And then once it took place, you buried it. To what end and what purpose? What did you achieve? This. So this has got to do nothing with migration, immigration issues. It's got nothing to do with Punjabs or Sikhs or Punjabis. This has got everything to do with motivated people running an agenda of secessionism and wanting the breakup of India, being hosted, aided and abetted by a foreign power, namely Canada, which is as absurd as the Indians hosting the Irish Republican Army or Quebec separatists. But the Canadian establishment is choosing to do this. Now, this is for Canadians to decide. The Indian Prime Minister has come and commented on this. He's condemned the attack. The Chief Minister of the Indian state of Punjab, who's an opposition leader, has come and condemned the attack. The Indian Foreign Minister has reacted. Let me take reactions from guests joining us. Ambassador Manju Seth is with us, General Didi Dwivedi with us, Surinder Singh Lally joining us on the broadcast as well, as is Gautam Mukherjee. General Dwivedi, now, at what point of time, with how many visuals and photographs and daylight assaults and attacks on temples and consulates and floats, do we stop thinking that this is just incidental, that this is just a group of people who are gone rogue, they are mavericks? And at what point of time do we think that no, it's actually the Canadian police, their intelligence, their entire state machinery that is not only allowing this to happen, but is aiding and abetting this to happen?
Well, Rishabh, you have given a very detailed background, and I think that sets the stage for the current debate. Well, I belong to Punjab Jalandhar, and I follow the event very closely. I was deeply involved during the Punjab militancy days from the mid-80s to the early 90s. Well, I can give you my own perception because I also have my own blood relations abroad, both in Canada and in United States. The point is, first and foremost, it's a state sponsor, the state machinery, and no less than the Prime Minister himself, who is actually giving complete impetus and also, I think, orchestrating what is going on. And the Canadian police is only abiding by the higher direction and by the dictates of the government. Now, the issue is that in Punjab, no one has any doubt, because there are no takers of Khalistani movement in Punjab. It is only a myth that has been created in Canada, and the Canadian government is sponsoring all this because it has a compulsion, because it cannot survive without the support of the Khalistanis, of the sympathizers like Jagmeet Singh, who is heading the National Democratic Party, they are the ones who are sustaining Trudeau. And Trudeau actually has lost any credibility among his own citizens. Point number two. Well, I think the Indian government, Prime Minister, has very correctly pointed out that this is all deliberate. It is being stage set, and it's not happening as a incidence by incidence. It's a very properly strategic moves that are being planned to weaken India, and also in that bargain to malign our image among the global community, because they have been trying to implicate our diplomats and trying to give an impression and even comparing India with one of the states which are sponsoring such like activity. So, Rishabh, all I can say is three important things. First and foremost, we must ensure we must go hammer and tongue to expose the Canadian government in the global community. Secondly, we also need to condemn these instances. After all, if your own temples are being attacked, and then I think there is no boundary left. Thirdly, we also need to sensitize the Indian community in Canada that this is being sponsored to actually bring in divide between the Hindus and Sikhs in Canada, because they form almost 1.8 million, and they are almost proportionally represented. So
my fear, my fear, General Dwivedi, and forgive the interjection, is that it's not bringing in. I think it has already brought in. That has already happened. Now, we had this conversation a year ago, we had this conversation 2 years ago, when we could have argued it bringing in that this is not right, this is going in the wrong direction. You've been discussing it, I've been discussing it. All of us sitting here have been discussing the same thing, that this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, and now it's happened. So let me get Ambassador Manju Seth in. Ambassador Manju Seth, now let me reverse the scenario. Let me say that there are free Quebec revolutionaries headquartered in New Delhi who are protesting again outside on Kartavya Path, and they beat up a few Canadians who have come out to oppose them. They want a united Canada. And it is discovered subsequently on video evidence that members of the Delhi police were part of the Free Quebec revolutionaries. Now, what would we then stand accused of?
Absolutely, lots of things, including treason and nonsense, they would have come up with, and they would have gone to town. Already we can see the narrative, anti-India narrative being created by the Canadian government, which is really, not acceptable. The way they are going around, leaking things here, talking in Australia, talking here, talking there. I think it's really amazing that amazing and disturbing at the same time for us, that the way this is a blatant, it's not freedom of speech, it is a blatant encouragement. As you very rightly said, if a similar scenario was here, had happened here, with the Quebec separatists here, I mean, can you imagine the situation? They might even have bombed us, I think, through, the NATO or whatever. But yes, this is something which is not at all acceptable, and we have to, I think, put pressure from, getting it's people who are, I think other people seem to be supporting or encouraging Canada in all this, and they need to be, other powers, let me put it, they need to be spoken to be discussed, and to put pressure on Canada to stop this and reverse, take corrective action. It's high time. And yesterday the Hindus came out and in Brampton and in a protest, peaceful protest. There were no such incidents, fortunately, at that protest march. But the police there need to be given a clear message that they are there to maintain law and order for everyone, not only for the Khalistanis. It seems that they seem to be supporting the Khalistanis, and the pro-Khalistanis have infiltrated, I think. The government already we had seen, the NDP was there before, now they're supported from outside. And at other levels, it appears that these elements have managed to go in. And if it would happen in India, we can imagine the furor, the kind of action that would be taken. It would have been really, very difficult for India to. Already, in something we're not involved, they've already gone after us.
Okay, for people for Justin Trudeau, who probably doesn't understand this, even though he dresses up and plays the game, for Poilievre, who probably is being advised differently also. Let me just quickly educate you, and Mr. Lali will back me up on this. So how this works, ladies and gentlemen, is that in Punjabi families, to the tune of my great grandparents, the eldest child adopted the ways of Guru Nanak and wore a turban and became a Sikh. So Hindu and Sikh families are intertwined. So you will find Gulatis who are turban wearings and non-turban wearings. You will find Kohlis who are turban wearing and non-turban. Manmohan Singh Kohli was the Prime Minister of India. Virat Kohli is been the cricket captain. Okay, we are intertwined. Where is one? The same is true or used to be true of families in Canada. Mine certainly is intertwined for sure there. Now, if you don't understand this, and for your get brainwashed by a clique that is running an agenda, you're in a lot of trouble, because then you've not understood the community that you're working with. Mr. Lali, at what point of time does it become absurd to the nth degree that the police is now taking part in these protests, allowing them to happen? If this was reversed, sir, and I put the example, if the Delhi police was taking part in a free Quebec rally, how would that be observed by the international community?
Thank you, Rishabh. I couldn't hear you. Your voice was getting muffled. Can you repeat the question, sir?
Let me try. If the Delhi police, sir, was taking part in free Quebec rallies, how would that be viewed internationally?
Mr. Gulati, you made a fantastic point, and quite often when people would ask me, and this is on a note of levity, that what is the difference between Hindus and Sikhs in America, I would say that every Sikh is a Hindu, but every Hindu might not be a Sikh, because we are the special edition of Hindus. That's what I used to often say. My grandfather was the first Hindu, because my great-grandfather wouldn't have his children survive, due to some pandemic. So that's how simple it was. But now it is complicated, especially in Canada, because these narrow fringe criminals who are involved in all sort of nefarious activities, which are less than 5%, have become a tool for this pyromaniac called Justin Trudeau, who has burned his house down, the relationship between two democracies, only for his shallow, narrow political gain. He's playing in the hands of Jagmeet Singh, who probably had to support him because he had 25 seats. And Rishabh, I see a lot more to it. For some reason, I'm going to complicate this a little bit now. I think it is their southern neighbor who is playing behind the curtain, giving them all the 5 hours intelligence, then it going back to Washington Post being leaked, and then the Niger and the Panu trial. So I think this is a lot larger script being played out by the southern neighbor, because maybe they are not happy with us not doing the line and becoming an ally and being independent in our thought process in our foreign policy. So there is a lot more, and it's only that these fringe rogues in Canada who have become tools and are bringing a bad name to the likes of me, because I wear a turban. I mean, I don't think these Johnnies understand even one of Sikhism. 15 miles away from where you sit, Mr. Gulati, the 9th Sikh Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur, was beheaded in 1675 because he chose not to convert. Guru Gobind Singh Sahib had 2 of his children at the age of 6 and 9, being bricked alive. Why am I telling you all this? Coming from such a background, these jokers have gone and attacked another religion, which is part of us Hindus, at the place of worship. You don't become a Sikh by wearing 5 meters of fabric on your head and having unshorn hair. It's the values that we stand for, and it's unfortunate that I am going to go a step further and say, maybe these Johnnies need to get their head examined, because what are they talking? Which map are they talking about? Which country are they including? I mean, we just need to leave them alone, and I think our nimble and deft foreign minister is doing a great job in keeping them at bay. But it's very unfortunate that, the large diasporas are going to become the meat in the sandwich between the the hideous things done by Trudeau Senior, which started 40 years ago, and now the Trudeau Junior, like a dumb individual he is taking the legacy forward.
I completely concur. My assessment would be exactly the same. And we've learned a bitter lesson once again as a country. For those who still aspire, with some logic and force of history, that in Washington, India should find a friend, that no. They're a friend which you have to constantly look over your back over. So are the Canadians doing this all by themselves? Heck no. For sure they are being prompted and pitched up. No way is Trudeau doing it because he woke up one fine morning and decided to take on the world and his southern neighbors. So he's being egged on. For sure he's being egged on. By who he's being egged on? We'll have to find out. Gautam Mukherjee. So now there is a law and order crisis happening on the streets of Canada. Okay. Now, if there was a protest going on in India, it's a global issue. The House of Lords, the House of Commons, the Canadian Parliament is discussing it. If there is a protest happening in Canada in which emergency powers are being invoked, nobody discusses it. Now there's a street war going on. Whose responsibility? It's not our responsibility. What is the job of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Five Eyes Intelligence, the Trudeau administration? What should they be doing? Gautamji, if you can hear us.
Is that for me?
Yes, it is.
Well, the one thing is the Khalistanis have been doing whatever they've been doing for a number of years with impunity in Canada. What is intriguing is what is the United States and Canada up to? If they think that this is a process of weakening India, I think it's a pretty woolly way of thinking. Khalistan 2.0, if you want to call it that, has no chance in India whatsoever. They tried very hard in the 80s and they failed. At that time, Pakistan was in a position to assist them quite materially and was a much stronger ISI than you see today. China may be one of the contributors to the Khalistani movement in Canada. The ISI of Pakistan certainly is. And, part of trying to do down the Hindu community, etc., is definitely the ISI's agenda, which the Khalistanis are towing because they get paid by them. Now, the interesting thing, and it's almost a joke, is while the government of Canada is playing champion for these louts, the Khalistanis are quietly taking over in Canada. They will never get a Khalistan in India, but I think they're well on their way to creating a Khalistan with their laws and their ways and their elected representatives in Canada. They have become a powerful pressure group, and they are likely to grow in strength with this misguided backing of both the government of Canada, so much so that the opposition is scared to take them on. The opposition that desperately wants to unseat the Liberals and Trudeau is
so let me correct the record for people watching this telecast. Jagmeet has already withdrawn support from Justin Trudeau. Okay, it's technically a minority government. He's been supporting them from the outside nonetheless, and he's withdrawn support. Now, of course, Pierre Poilievre is thinking that, hey, he might win 20 odd seats. I might need him if the election is too close. So let me cancel my Diwali celebrations. It makes no sense. And I'm telling you, it makes no sense. As I've just explained, as Mr. Lally has just explained, these are intertwined communities. There is no Hindu community and there's no Sikh community. There is one community. Okay, I mean, the families are intermarried and they come from the same villages in Punjab and they all know each other. So the division you're trying to do is well nigh impossible to happen, other than the few extremists, most of whom ran away from India and are facing cases in India. Those people you have taken on board as the voice of the Sikh community, which is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. General Dwivedi, so what do? Here we are. It's a farcical scenario. It's laughable. If I just flip this around, imagine you and I taking out, some Jhanda rally supporting the Irish Republican Army, okay, condemning Bloody Friday, tearing down the Union Jack from the British High Commission. It's laughable. I mean, it would be absurd. I've been playing out the speeches of Charles de Gaulle, pitching for a free Quebec, for the point that it sounds absurd. So this is an absurd situation. What do we do?
Absolutely, Rishabh, you played a very, I think, live analogy. I wish to make just 2 points because of shorter time. First and foremost, as I said, I operated in Punjab militancy for about 6 years. The main reason or the main trump card was the Hindu-Sikh unity. And that's what defeated the militancy. And that was actually the turning point. And here also you will find that in Canada too, this attempt to divide Hindu-Sikh community is not going to sustain because of the deep-rooted connection they have already brought out. The second point, Rishabh, today we are in the era of information warfare. And this actually is a very dangerous weapon because you can target the mind of young people. Well, the elderly generation fully understand the cohesiveness between the two communities, but the young people are impressionable and they can be targeted. So all I can say is that this has to be taken very seriously because it does impact India security, stability, and also our image in the global fraternity. I think this needs a very concrete policy, not event by event reaction, but a very concrete policy how to take on this dual aggressive stance by US and Canada and of course the other allies too, and ensure that our interests are protected and our communities are not become victim of the very vicious game. Rishabh.
Okay, Master Manju said, so let me put the question to you. Could Trudeau be doing this without the nod and the wink from the Americans?
Absolutely not. I say, as I mentioned, it seems that they're being encouraged actually. Canada seems to be being encouraged by these Five Eyes or the other powers, and by the US it looks like, without directly indicating or getting involved. The US is trying, I think, but they do want to put India down, and as former ambassador to the US very succinctly put it, they're trying to hold India's feet to fire, So really that is what I feel is happening, because India, they do not want India become strong. They don't want a strong leader here. And the fact that we did not toe their line, we did not go along with what they wanted us to do, including not meeting Russian president and trading with Russia, trading oil with Russia, etc. A lot of things they had told us, you can't do this, you can't do that, but we tried to have our strategic autonomy and we wanted to go ahead. But that I think has upset a lot of elements in the US as well, who are trying now to teach us a lesson. And one point that I'd like to make on the Sikhs, many of the Sikhs, and those who are active in the Khalistani movement or protests, many of them have gone illegally. They went as illegal, through all these so-called illegal routes. And many of them, being illegal there, they were, for whatever reason, given refuge, asylum in Canada, and then later regularized. So many of them are not even, did not go there to add value, but many of them have just gone illegally and spent, they've spent so many crores of money together and gone there. But who has benefited from all this? I think it's the criminal gangs, the drug traffickers, and the human traffickers who have got into all this. And
okay, but the question then is, and let me offer free advice. If you want permanent residency of Canada, just claim yourself to be a persecuted minority in India. You'll get it super fast.
Yeah.
So this is what the lawyers who process the applications are advising people from India. If you want to get it done quickly, just claim, build a sob story that you're a persecuted minority in India. You'll get it done super fast. It doesn't make a difference if you're highly qualified or doing a master's education or, can contribute to the Canadian economy. No. The immigrants that they want are the ones who are claiming to be persecuted minorities, many of whom are lying about being persecuted minorities because they aspire for the standard of life that they feel Canada can offer. So let me get Mr. Lally back. Mr. Lally, in the end, why do we care? This is a law and order problem for the Canadians. We're doing fine here. They are putting snakes in the backyard. Their headache.
See, I could only hear that part. Why do we care? We need to, because we have a very large diaspora and Punjab has already paid a very big price. Punjab is not just a border state, it is Pakistan itching to get back, and China uses Pakistan as a proxy to keep both the borders hot. Mr. Gulati, American supremacy does exist financially, but American hegemony is kind of dwindling, and it's in that desperate act of the United States to create these sort of, fringe rogues under the bogey of free speech, because they need India in the Indo-Pacific. And as, Ambassador Manju said that, I'm sure every time, our Prime Minister gave a hug to Putin, they must be having anti-acid tablets in America. That's one. And two, voice of the Sikhs. Which Sikh? Which referendum? 85% live in India. We have more elections than we ought to. That's a different discussion. But which referendum are they having? Who are they representing? They could be 10, 15, 20,000 people. We don't need their advice. Please, thank you, no thank you. These are, as Ambassador said, that these are fringe rogues who are criminals who jump the border, who go there, and then they are told if they want political asylum, just go out the Indian embassy, disrespect the flag and chant a few slogans, and there is one member parliament for X amount, he'll also issue you a letter, and your case for political asylum comes up. And one more thing is that I won't even call them, I don't wish to use that word. They have no right to use the word Sikhs. As best, I would call them extremist activists. And one last thing, as you rightly insinuated, Harinder Sohi, a Peel police officer, amazing. On his off day, he is with the K flag and trying to harm Hindus. Amazing. That's amazing conflict of duty. And the other one is Sandeep Singh Sandhu, who's a superintendent in police in the Canadian Border Force, where we have given evidence that he was involved in the murder of Balwinder Singh Sandhu, who's a Shaurya Chakra winner. So end of the day, these are all little Johnnies who are playing in the hands of that pyromaniac who in his keeping, his house warm. He's burnt his house down so that he can create, some to cut the cold down. That's as simple as it gets. And I want to thank you, Rishabh and Newsx, for allowing the spaces of the likes of me to come up and say that even if we do wear a turban, we don't share the values I don't think they've understood religion at all. They are just operating in that very short space which Canada has provided to them. And it's very unfortunate because I don't see much of hope, because Pierre Poliver cancels a Diwali function. He is in the Baisakhi festivals where there are anti-India slogans being chanted, and he does not issue a press statement. So I don't think these relationships are with Canada is getting better anytime sooner.
But what is important to understand, and this is what happened in New Zealand, the other part of Five Eyes. This is December 2023, not too long ago, all right, few months ago. Sarjeet Sidhu, 27-year-old, pleaded guilty to attempted murder. Sukhpreet Singh, age 44, was found guilty of being an accessory. The third individual, a 48-year-old Auckland resident, harbored resentment against an individual, Harnek Singh, also a Sikh, because he was vocally opposing the Khalistani movement. So a Sikh who opposes the Khalistani movement, who happens to have a radio show, is brutally assaulted and attacked. The people are convicted, and a New Zealand judge says, I quote, "It bears all the hallmarks of religious fanaticism. Sentencing therefore requires a different approach. The emphasis must be placed on protecting the community from further violence, and it is essential to send a strong message of deterrence." Now, this is a New Zealand judge, but that is after the knives have already come out. Here you're watching the sticks and stones, but Gautam Mukherjee, are we now watching and waiting for blood to be spilled in Canada, more so than what has already, for them to realize that they have actually messed this one up?
Well, I think since the target is India, they are, I think, quite prepared for collateral damage in Canada. This is being fanned not only by the Khalistanis, but like I said, the ISI, China, the Canadian government, aided and abetted by America next door. The Five Eyes are making sounds, but they are not actively contributing. Particularly, Australia and New Zealand are lukewarm on the whole thing. Britain always chimes in, the eternal poodle. So that will go on. But are they getting anywhere with all this? The unity that Mr. Lali is speaking of is evident. The bulk of the Sikhs, in fact 99% of them, identify as Indians. They work all over India. They worked in the armed forces. They work in business. Punjab, they are not localized in Punjab. A Sikh is to be seen anywhere in India, and this was true during the Khalistan movement of the 80s. It is true now. I know my own Sikh friends used to say, look, it's unwise to be in Punjab during the Khalistani movement of the 80s because I'm worried about my children and so on. So we live elsewhere. So this is the loyalty and attitude of the average Sikh. These people don't stand a chance.
Okay,
and that was when they were actually making some headway.
The irony is, you have the US ambassador Eric Garcetti sitting here in India dancing. Okay. Now, what's the purpose of him dancing? He might be a phenomenal dancer, but he wants to show that I'm with it with Indian culture. Ambassador Garcetti, with due respect to Your Excellency, you still keep assuming that Indians are just naive. They'll fall for everything. As long as somebody comes up and dresses up and puts on a good show, we'll believe everything you say. And we can't put the two and two together, and we can't figure it out. Seriously. Thank you, gentlemen. I take a break. We leave the Canadians to figure out their Canadian policing, because I repeat, this is happening on the streets of Canada, not on the streets of New Delhi. See you in a minute.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.